And this evening I'm going to talk about something which cuts across all spiritual religious traditions, and which you may think is just about monks and nuns, but it's also about each one of you as well, in various different ways in your life, which is how to be a hermit, how to be a happy hermit. Because being a hermit is one thing which always attracted me to a spiritual or religious life. Because the idea of these wise people living a long way from anywhere, totally outside of the busyness of the world, totally untouched by those cravings and those struggles which define our lives. People who've been so radical, they put the classical Australian one finger up against life and say, I'm not going to go that way, I'm going to go my own way. And certainly as a monk, of many years, and us the nuns as well, we do practice a lot of the hermit life. I myself, as many of you know, live in a cave. And you do spend, even though how busy you are, you do spend a lot of times by yourself on retreats, not speaking or seeing people. And so I know about what a hermit is like. But also, I realize just how powerful an experience that is for people who are not monks or nuns. People who go on a retreat, either an organized retreat or what we call these days a self-retreat, where you spend time by yourself, or you just go and visit a monastery or the nuns' monastery and just spend time without the TV or without the computer, without so much talking to one another, spending time by yourself. And what a challenge, but what a rewarding challenge that actually is. Because even if you don't go joining monasteries or nuns' monasteries or retreat centres, each one of you will spend many hours by yourself in your life. Even if you're married in the middle of a family and very busy, there's much of your life you spend alone. You are a hermit, much of your life, but sometimes we don't admit it. But I know as what I might call a professional hermit. Actually, as a professional hermit, I think the last time I gave a talk on hermits many, many years ago, somebody went on the internet and they had this little book of weird things, and one of the chapters of this book was a chapter in United Kingdom in England about 120, 30 years ago, where actually being a hermit was a profession. And in the newspapers they would actually advertise for hermits, because what was happening, all these really rich people with their estates in England, they would start, they had their big house, and it was a fashionable thing. The in thing was to have your own hermit. And they would actually build these grottos in their grounds of these country homes. And they make little caves. And they'd actually advertise in the newspapers for a hermit. And of course, once they got a good one, after dinner, served by their butlers in these rich homes, then they'd take their guests for a little walk in their garden to see their hermit. And of course the hermit would give you a little bit of stupid words which everyone think was wise, and it would impress your friends. In those days, every rich person should have one. It was one of those must-have things. And I remember one of the stories about this person was advertising. They built their grotto, had a big home, and they called them ornamental hermits. It's true, that's what they're called, ornamental hermits. And they advertised in the newspaper, and it was actually a really good job, because they were describing this one person. You don't have to work for 3 years, that was your contract. And as part of the contract, you weren't allowed to cut your hair, nor cut your nails, nor wash. The smellier, the better. But whatever you wanted to eat, they'd actually, whatever you wanted, they'd actually send the best food from their kitchens to feed you. And at the end of 3 years, they give you a huge sum of money for being the ornamental hermit. But it was actually very difficult to find real hermits, because one story was this guy came in, he looked really weird enough, really long hair, freaky enough to be a real hermit, and he would sit in his cave, and when the people would come, he'd give them sort of wise advice. So he was like a professional hermit. But apparently he got the sack after 4 weeks when they found him in the pub after work. Because that's not really what a hermit should be doing, going to the pub after work. It's like a full-time hermit. He's supposed to be wise and. But anyway, that was a fashion which lasted about 10 years, I think, in the 1860s and 1870s in England. But the real hermits, each one of you will be a hermit. And actually, why did he have to go to the pub? When you're a professional hermit. Why is that? Why is it we find it so hard to stay by ourselves? And people have often asked me that question. And there's a classic answer there, is that in Ajahn Brahm, sometimes you spend so much time by yourself. You haven't got a wife. You haven't got sort of a mistress. You haven't got people around you. Don't you ever miss people? Especially that, my record was 6 months by myself, not speaking or seeing anybody. And it was an amazing experience because throughout that whole 6 months, never seeing anybody, not a human being, nor they'd just leave food in a box. And I know when they were coming there, and afterwards I'd go and pick it up. And I'd put my bowl back there afterwards, so they'd fill it up the next day. Never spoke to anybody for 6 months. They said, "Didn't you feel lonely?" And the answer was, I never felt lonely. And I asked myself why I didn't feel lonely. And the answer was, because there was always someone there. Me. And I quite like myself. So because I quite like myself, throughout those whole 6 months I was with my best friend. How can you feel lonely when you're with your best friend all day? And the reason was, I was my best friend. And that gave me an indication of what it's like to be a hermit and what it's like to be a happy hermit. Because when you learn how to like yourself and be your best friend, then whenever you are in the hermit moments of your life, you are never, ever lonely. And sometimes I wonder why it is that people seek out company overmuch, why they have to have other people around them. And of course, it always is some type of escapism. People tell me, you're a monk, you're escaping from real life, Ajahn Brahm. It's actually the opposite. Because when you're a monk or a nun, or when you actually go and stay in a monastery, when you have time by yourself, you can't escape anymore from yourself. And people who come and stay for times in monasteries or retreat centres, that's what they always keep saying. It's a difficult thing because so many hours of the day they're with themselves and they can't escape. They can't watch the TV, the radio, get on the internet or go and see their friends down the pub or the coffee shop, because they're facing themselves minute after minute, hour after hour. And it's a great experience for people, because for many of us we do live such a busy life. We're always with other people. There's so many things to do. We've never actually found out who we are. And we never actually got a relationship with ourselves. We try and build relationships with our parents, we try and build relationships with our partner in life. Later on we build relationships with our teacher, with our office workers, with our boss. But we always leave out the most important person, to make a relationship with ourselves. And a lot of people don't know who we are. And so when you're faced with yourself, hour after hour, sometimes many hours of a day, sitting in your room or just going for a walk by yourself, there you are, and you can't escape from you. That's one of the wonderful things about being a hermit. You have to learn how to like yourself and how to be a friend of yourself. And I found it's like human nature. If you hang out with people long enough, you become friends with them. I've noticed this social dynamic of like a community, like a monastery. You probably notice this, like in the office or whatever. If you've got a group of people and they stay together long enough, eventually they do become friends. And there's a sort of bonding happens, and that's with men and women. You see people when they first come to, say, a monastery, and they get arguing with each other, and they've got different personalities, they're great. But after a few years of living together, you get used to each other, you understand each other. Oh, that's just him being him, that's just Ajahn Brahm being Ajahn Brahm, telling all these stupid jokes. Sort of, that's who you are. After a while, you get to accommodate to people. In other words, you learn how not to find fault with others. And I found that happen not just in monks' monasteries, in nuns' monasteries as well. For the first few years of that nuns' monastery, there was a lot of friction there. But now there's this group of 4 bhikkhunis, and they're just working together really harmoniously. They've bonded, which is a wonderful thing to do, and it took them a long time to do that. And the most important thing is you can do that with yourself after a while. By giving time for yourself and being with yourself, you bond with the most important person, yourself, instead of always having this friction with yourself. What I'm saying is, the longer time you spend in a bit of solitude by yourself, the more you get to know yourself, the more you get to accept yourself, you actually bond with the most important person, yourself. And of course I bonded with myself a long time ago, which is why I can be a happy monk, be with myself. When you learn these skills, you actually learn how to love yourself, which is such a tough thing for people to do these days. You've got people who will feel guilty. I keep on getting onto guilt. They hate themselves. Or maybe not as far as hating themselves. That's when people get depressed and suicidal, but at least they're very dubious about their self-worth. And they're sort of very doubtful that they're a good person. And because of that, they have a huge amount of psychological and social and health problems in life. You could have a huge effect lessening the health budget of this state, of this country, of the whole world, if people just like themselves a bit more and don't be so sort of tense and afraid of themselves. And of course this is what solitude does for you. Just being with yourself, you get one of the greatest insights of a human being could ever get. And one of those greatest insights is, I'm okay. It's the I'm okay insight. There's nothing wrong with you. When they gave out a body and a mind, they didn't make a mistake with you. Everyone else got all the full deal, but me, there was a few parts missing, and that's the reason why I am who I am. I'm not as good as other people, there's something wrong with me. Now, of course, that means you're always struggling to be better, to be different, to be someone other than you really are. And of course, that is called hating yourself. Not liking who you are, wanting to be something different. That is hate. I make a sort of a hard word out of that, but I'm just being honest. And because of that, people get all social, psychological, emotional health problems. And, very simple, is to realize, actually, you're okay, nothing wrong with you. That's a great thing for me to understand. Because for years as a monk, I was striving to be the perfect monk, had an idea who the perfect monk was. For me, the perfect monk was much thinner than I am now. Was a monk who was always just so serious, who never laughs and never cries. You can tell me a joke and I would just sit there. And I wouldn't even smile. You can get angry at me and I would just sit there and just smile. Just this perfect, equanimous robot from Mars. And sometimes that's what you thought you were supposed to do. Sometimes people would tell a joke and you try not to laugh because the Buddha said that was like craziness. And sometimes, you'd be upset at somebody, and you're not supposed to show it. So you had all this ideal of what a monk was supposed to be, and be able to sit for hours without moving. And when a fly went up your nose, you're supposed to take it. So usually what you do in a meditation retreat, everyone's meditating, you open your eyes, anyone watching? Good. Stick it away. And it was all like playing about trying to be the perfect monk. And I went through that. You see other people going through that, and that's so much tension and suffering. And after a while I realised I didn't need to do that. Just be yourself. And then when you sort of don't try to be anything different, actually what happens then, you become relaxed. And when you become relaxed, you become content. When you become content, you become free. And then actually you become the perfect monk by not trying. It's the trying which stops the perfection happening. It's the same with each one of you. Who are you trying to be? And who are you trying to impress in life? That's what you start off with, is trying to impress your parents. And then you get married and try and impress your partner. You know what a waste of time that is. It's like trying to impress your boss at work. No matter how hard you work, they're never happy. And you spend your whole life trying to do something for other people. And after a while you find it doesn't work, makes you tense, upset, lots of suffering. And after a while, hopefully, your message clicks, a little light bulb goes on in your head. I don't need to do this. I can just be myself and be peaceful, be free. I can actually like me as I am. And when you learn how to like you as you are, totally as you are, with all of your idiosyncrasies, with all of the so-called faults, with all of the difficulties and things you shouldn't be, then you find some peace in life. And from that peace you realize, now that's what I really should have been in the first place. At peace with myself. It doesn't matter who that self is, as long as I'm at peace with it. And that becomes the goal. And that becomes what we talk about love. Love is accepting another person as they are, not trying to change them and make them different, not trying to make your wife some supermodel. And unfortunately people sort of try and convince you can do that these days. With Botox, with all these other chemicals, you give yourself a makeover. And apparently there's TV shows which do makeovers. They take this ugly person, well they are, aren't they? And with a bit of paint job and goodness knows what else, they come out this supermodel, really beautiful. And it's just all fraud, it's just a paint on the outside, you see. You might as well put a mask on them or put them into some suit. It's not really them. And anyway, what sort of, is that really what beauty is all about? And so the makeover is actually a stupid idea. It means you're not respecting yourself as you are. And anyway, it's nothing to do with the bodies. In fact, this is a makeover you're having right now, just the inner makeover, which is actually making over your hearts, your being inside. And actually, it's not even a makeover of that being. It's actually not making it over at all. It's just seeing it as it is and realizing it's not that bad after all. And accepting you, and being at peace with you, and loving you for who you really are. So I stopped striving a long time ago because I realized what a complete waste of time it is. Trying to be someone different than I am just made me tense, upset, couldn't enjoy my life, and also it meant that you're not really a good monk. You're not at peace with yourself. And because I learned how to be at peace with myself, because I made this beautiful thing like open the door of my heart to myself with all my faults, with all my stupidities, all the silly things which I say and do, open the door of my heart to that. Because I open the door of that heart to that, I'm actually quite friendly to myself. And I don't go around when I'm alone, I shouldn't have said that. I gave a stupid talk that last Friday night. Why did I tell that joke? I mean, that was just really just pushing things, telling those stupid jokes. And so because of that, okay, well, I've already started now, I'll tell a stupid joke. I told a few people this joke. I'm going to get in trouble for this, I'm sure, but who cares? This is the joke for this evening. President Obama. He was reacting to that, that Christmas Day bombing attempt on the airliner. And so, there was a security lapse, all of his main sort of security forces, stuffed up. So he decided to test his security forces, to compare the CIA, the FBI, and the LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department. So what did he do? He released a rabbit in one of the national parks. And first of all, the CIA, you have to find that rabbit. So the CIA went in there with all their operatives. They interviewed all those animals in the forest. It took them 3 months. Then they wrote a report. That took another 1 month. And the conclusion of the report, there was no rabbit in that forest. Thank you very much, CIA. And then the FBI went in. And the FBI went in there and they destroyed half the forest. It took them a whole month to do that. And they also concurred there is no rabbit in that forest. And then they sent in the Los Angeles Police Department, the LAPD. And they only took 3 hours. And they brought out this bear, this big bear, bruised and beaten, with his hands up in the air, screaming, "Okay, I'm a rabbit, I'm a rabbit, I'm a rabbit," said the bear. And I don't think I'll be able to go to Los Angeles for the next year. But anyway, that's my character, to be like this and tell jokes in public, which go all over the world. Now, the LAPD is not a bad police force. Please don't send your operatives out to beat me up. But you got to sort of, that's who I am. So I'm at peace with that. So can't you be at peace with yourselves? And if you're not at peace with yourself, which means in those solitary moments in your life, you know, when I leave here and I just go to my room, when I meditate at night, when I sleep, when I wake up in the morning, there's no one around. When you're in your retreats in the monastery, when you're in those afternoons and evenings when there's nothing to do and you're spared by yourself, then I never feel lonely at all. I never try to escape. And why? Because I'm with my best friend. I'm at peace with myself. Now, if you can learn how to do that, all those moments you have when there's no one around, you can enjoy those moments, you can value those moments. You're with a person who's very dear to you. It's like being, with a lover, being with a close friend, being with someone you just had such happy times with. And I've had such happy times with myself. Every time all you guys go, I think, "Hi me, here I am again. Wow, let's have fun." And I've said this quite a few times, and I actually do this. What I say here, I'm not fraudulent. What I actually say, I do, because I'm not sort of trying to pretend. So when I go to sleep at night, the last thing I do before I go to sleep is to say, "Good night, me, have a nice sleep, see you in the morning." And the first thing I do when I wake up, "Good morning, me, here I am again. Let's have fun." Now, I recommend that to each one of you. You don't go crazy that way. At least I don't think I am I? They don't go crazy that way. People who've been with me know I'm not crazy. But what happens is you're kind to yourself. This is actually what the Buddha actually said. He said, before you go to sleep at night, spread loving kindness. And then you always have a good, deep, peaceful sleep. So what does it mean when you say you've got to spread loving kindness before you go to sleep at night? Some people go, "May all beings be happy and well, may all beings be free from suffering." It doesn't really work because you miss out the most important person, the one you're actually sleeping with, you. And that's the most important, to have loving kindness towards yourself before you go to sleep at night. Otherwise, you're going with all this guilt, all this anger, all this tension and tightness and what happened today and what you're going to do tomorrow morning. That drives you crazy. I don't know how many health problems there come because people don't know how to sleep well at night. And that's a terrible thing, to sort of an affliction for people. And because you have to work so hard, the stress in your life is immense. So if you don't know how to sleep well, you're going to have a hard time coping with the stress of modern day living. So how do you solve that? You don't need sleeping tablets. You don't need sort of hypnosis or whatever. Just say to yourself, "Good night, me, have a nice night. See you in the morning." And then you go to sleep well because you're giving yourself loving kindness. You'll be caring and kind to this body and mind which has carried you through the day, giving it a nice rest so it can be there for you in the morning. See you in the morning, me. And when you see yourself in the morning, "Good morning, me, have a great day." And because that cheers you up, it energizes you. Now, if you can do things like that, a bit of loving kindness towards yourself, it also means you deserve that loving kindness. You've got a good relationship with yourself. You're not saying, "Oh, here he is again." Just like some of you say, "Oh, my wife again, what am I going to do? Here's my boss again, my kids, they're driving me crazy." No, you have this beautiful relationship with yourself. And when you learn how to have a beautiful relationship with yourself, you can have a beautiful relationship with anybody. This is actually where you learn about relationships, about kindness, about friendship. And this is something which monk teachers have told me years and years ago. Anyone who gets angry at other people, you know they're angry at themselves. If they're shouting at you and giving you a really hard time, they are doing exactly the same, probably more, to themselves. It's attitude. The attitude which they show to you, they will also carry into their quiet time and give to themselves. If they're critical and fault-finding to you, they'll be so critical and fault-finding to themselves. And that, of course, causes the great psychological problems, which people usually try and cope with mechanisms of escape, always running away from themselves, either in TV, internet, just doing things, being busy, busying themselves, so they're afraid to find the time to stop and look at themselves because they're too critical. They're going to find all these faults with who they are and what they've done. Too many people are travelling that path, and really it's so unnecessary. If they could only stop for a little while and find a bit of peace and look at themselves, and again get that marvellous insight, actually they're okay. Then they can have that peace and friendship with themselves. They can become at ease with themselves. And once they know how to do that, they can become at peace and ease with everybody. All I've learnt about relationships and being able to be kind and caring to each one of you, I've learnt by being kind and caring to myself. All I talk to you is what I talk to myself. The way I relate to others is precisely the way I relate to myself. And those of you who have known me for a long time, I'm not critical at all. Sometimes people come to interviews or counselling and they say these terrible things. Many of you have come to the retreats and those personal interviews, or a few have had some counselling here and they tell me these terrible things, and I say, very good. And sometimes they get really amazed. They say, look, I've just done something terrible. I said, yeah, very good. And sometimes they say, well, I've been meditating, I've just been asleep or fantasizing. I say, very good. They say, why do you always say very good? And I say, that's a great insight, very good. It is because I determine not to find fault. Because I don't find fault with myself. Instead, you appreciate and have gratitude for yourself and gratitude for other people. Wonderful that you're here. And all of you who give me a hard time, thank you so much for increasing my tolerance and my endurance. That's actually, I was taught by my teacher. You know the old story when the mosquitoes were giving you a hard time and you were not being tolerant of them and you were being so fault-finding, you stupid mosquitoes, can't we have mosquito repellent, mosquito coils, mosquito screens, you can afford this? And Ajahn Chah said, no. He said, you will call those mosquitoes Ajahn Mosquito, which means teacher. They're your teachers now. And they taught me so much, those Ajahn mosquitoes. And that's just like other things in life, which once you were irritated at, and now you say, wow, what a wonderful teaching that is. All those things which you were critical of, and you thought, terrible, bad, nasty, you say, no, those are your teachers. And in our tradition, we respect our teachers. We bow down to Ajahn Mosquito. Thank you, Mr. Mosquito, actually usually Mrs. Mosquito, for causing all that insight and love to arise. Thank you so much. And that way, because you're not critical, because you value these things, even the things which will send other people sort of crazy and get them into ill will and get them into tension, you find you can actually accept and be at peace with. This is what you do with yourself. All of your little faults and peccadillos, the silly things, the stupid things you do, these are what you learn from. These are your teachers. Your stupid ways of thinking, restlessness, all your fantasies, all your dreams, all your silly hopes, and you know what they are. And all of those, instead of saying, oh, these are terrible things which I'm thinking about or doing, no, they're your teachers, respect them. They're part of you. Love them, embrace them. Open the door of your heart and let them in. Which is why I say, very good that you're thinking of killing your wife. Very good. Very good. Because actually, psychologically, I know that's stopping you killing your wife. It's stopping you doing all those terrible things you're thinking of. Because by saying very good, you're making peace with yourself. You're letting go of the cause for all that sort of violence by speech or even by body which happens in the world, which is fault-finding, controlling, not accepting, not being at peace with things. So after a while, we begin to be kind and be caring to these things. And when that happens, you find if you can be at peace with yourself, you can be at peace with others. People, they just want to do it a different way than you. Maybe watching the TV and somebody else wants to switch on the other channel. You think, wonderful, be my guest. Which channel would you like? People were telling me that actually there's this place in Perth. I won't say who it is, I'm not sure if they're there this evening. They were telling me that they were watching the TV, just a family, and every now and again the channel would change. It just automatically, so they get the remote control, they change it back again. A few seconds later the channel will change again. You know what the cause was? They found out it was a ghost. There was a ghost actually in the house, and the ghost wanted to watch a certain channel on the TV. And the ghost doesn't need remote control, they can just do it by themselves. So if they wanted to watch the footy, it doesn't matter what you want to watch, that's what they would watch. If they want to watch a movie or a soapy, then that's what the ghost would do. And you'd sort of try and turn it back again, but they would turn it back. No, they won every time. And it was true. So you know what they did? They know how they solved the problem? They didn't try to exorcise the ghost, they just bought another TV, and that was for the ghost. It's true, that's what they did. An obvious solution. So it's compassion and kind. You respect these things. You don't try and control them. So they've got one TV especially for the ghost in the house. So the ghost can watch whatever they want, and you can watch what you want. So it's great being a monk because people tell you all these weird stories and you collect them all, and they're great material for your talks. So if you have any weird stories like that, please let me know, and I can tell it next Friday night. But whatever, it's just like being kind and being compassionate. So when you're not fault-finding to yourself, you're at peace with yourself, just people want to change the channel, just like yourself. I know I can't control me. This is who I am, and you try and control yourself. You try and be a better teacher or do this and do that. But look, if you try and control yourself, you get so stiff and tight. You try and control yourself when you're meditating, and you just get so tense and tight. You can't get any peace. You can't enjoy the meditation. So I keep on telling you, when you're meditating, just let go, make peace with things. Love this moment as it is, because this moment is you. So love this moment, and then you love yourself. You try and change this moment because you want to get into jhanas, you want to get enlightened, you want to see all these lights, you want to see the lottery numbers for next week. It doesn't matter what you want to watch, but trying to do things like that just makes you tense. When you really let go, just allow this moment to be, open the door of your heart to this moment, accept this moment. Say to this moment, very good. You're really falling asleep, very good. You've got these incredible, weird sexual fantasies. Very good. Whatever it is, when you accept things like that and you let them be, then you relax and you become at peace. And all these things actually disappear. It's a wonderful thing to be at peace with yourself. And how do you make peace with yourself? You never find peace by making war with yourself. And so many people in this world are at war with themselves, which means when they're by themselves, they're at war. They come to a monastery, they try and sit by themselves, they're at war with themselves, trying to change themselves, trying to do something, make themselves different, sort out all the problems. They're at war with their past, at war with their future, at war with their present. Oh, they really get stuffed up. And when they come and see me, I say, very good. Because they're trying to teach people, don't be at war with these things, accept, make peace, be kind to yourself. And if you can do things like that, you're actually befriending yourself. Some of the friends which I've made are far from perfect. I made a point, when I became a Buddhist, even at college, to make sure I kept my friendships with Christians and atheists. And even now I value having friends who don't share the same views and ideas that I share. So I can be friends with people who are diametrically opposed to my lifestyle. Isn't that wonderful? And I remember just with those friends I was at college, and I kept them, and they're still there. And so we had a reunion last October, seeing some friends I hadn't seen for 40 years. And I remember just at the end of those college years when we were going our different ways, and I'd been a Buddhist for all those 3 years at Cambridge, and I asked all my friends, none of them was a Buddhist, and I asked them afterwards, what did you think about me being a Buddhist? And they said, we respected you. I said, why? I said, because you never talked to us about your Buddhism. That you just respected us for who we were. And that's why we respected you for who you were. That's what respect is. Not trying to change another person. And I keep that friendship with people of other religions, and I really value those friendships with the other, who is not the same as me. Because that's valuing the things in myself, which maybe it would be great if they were different, but they can't be, so they're there, so I make peace with them. Which means because I get this friendship which can go against what I think should be and shouldn't be, you even go to prisons and see prisoners. You don't agree with people doing crimes and hurting other people and stealing and robbing. I can still be friends with those people. I can still open the door of your heart to those people. And if I can do that to murderers, it's so easy to make friends with myself. It's the same thing happens. When you make peace with yourself, you can make peace with others. And this marvelous thing happens. Because you make peace with yourself, you don't try to change yourself. Change happens. It's a change because it's the negativity, the no love, the hate, the disrespect to who you are. That is the cause of the problem. And when you take away that disrespect for yourself, when you stop trying to change, as I said at the beginning, you realize you're okay. And that's the start of the path to enlightenment. To realize, yeah, I'm okay. I don't need to change. And once that starts, then you're off. Then you do change. Because what changes is this thing which wants to make things different. This thing which is not love. This thing which doesn't embrace and accept things. That is a cause. We call it in Buddhism the craving. The craving to change and make things different inside of you. And when that starts to disappear, you get all this beautiful peace, confidence, joy, at peace with yourself, at friends with yourself. Because you're at friends with yourself, then all these things which enlightenment is supposed to be, freedom, happiness, joy, not needing anything, not wanting anything, they just come to you. When you stop craving, everything you wanted, everything you craved for, that just comes straight to you. I usually tell this little simile in retreats. I don't think I've said this at Nolamara Temple, because this is one of Ajahn Chah's deepest teachings. This is what he told me the first year I was with him. He said his monastery in northeast Thailand, Wat Pah, he said it was a mango orchard. And he said that mango orchard was planted by the Buddha 2,500 years ago. That was crazy. There's no mangoes in this monastery, and if they were planted by the villagers a few years ago, not by the Buddha. He never came to Thailand. What are you talking about? But as usual, it was talking as an analogy. So this monastery is a mango orchard, and trees were planted by the Buddha. He said now, just right now, that tree is dripping with ripe, juicy mangoes. But you monks today are so lucky. You don't need to climb the tree to get the mango. You don't even need to take a stick and throw it at the branches to get the mangoes down. All you need to do, he said, is hold out your hand and a mango will fall into it. That's how lucky you are today. absolutely bunkum. Crazy. What do you mean? Every time I put my hand out under a mango tree, it's never fallen into my hand. If it does fall, it falls over there somewhere. Never into my hand. What are you talking about? And he said, I realized after many years, sort of what those mangoes are, these are like the fruits of the Buddhism, the peace, the joy, the happiness, the wisdom, the enlightenment. He said, you don't go climbing the tree to get that. You don't go shaking it or throwing sticks up to try and get insight, enlightenment. Instead, you sit still and open your heart. And then the fruits of enlightenment just fall into your palm. Never over there or over there, but right into the center of your heart. Once you've opened your heart. You close your heart, and of course, even if it does fall, it falls in there and goes somewhere else. Open your heart and do nothing else. Sit still. And then the fruits of enlightenment come right into you. Now you understand what we're talking about. Don't change things, open things. Make peace with yourself. And the only time you can do that, usually, is when you're not rushing around doing other things. In those moments of solitude, your hermit moments in life. And if you develop those hermit moments, and in those hermit moments of your life, this evening when you go home, even if you've got a husband or wife sleeping right next to you, once you've kissed her good night, once you've patted him on the head, good boy, good boy, good boy. I don't know how you treat your partners. And you close your eyes, then is your hermit moment. You're with yourself, by yourself. Just open the door of your heart to you, to this moment, to life. Nice to be here, me. Good to see you again. Have a great time. Good night. With that degree of openness, being your best friend, not only do you never feel lonely at night, you sleep well, you wake up well, and all those moments in your life when you're by yourself, they're precious, they're valuable. In the same way that people like to spend time with their kids before they grow up and leave. When you've got a good friend visiting over this holiday period from overseas, you want to spend time with them. The same way you love spending time with yourself. Not needing to read a book, or not needing to listen to a music on iPod. You're just with you, your best friend. And you like hanging out with you. Because what happens when you're by yourself? You learn so much more than you ever learn with other people. Because this is like your laboratory. This is actually where you learn about how life really works from the center of your universe. And when you learn about you learn about everything. The whole world, the whole universe. That's why, that I give all these talks to all these amazing organizations. And sometimes people ask me, what's your resume? Yes, theoretical physics, but I forgot about that years ago, just being a monk. Have you got any counselling degrees? No. Do you know anything about economics? No. Shipping? No. Sex? No. And still people come and ask me about their personal problems. How do I learn about this? Just by being friends with myself and being at peace with myself. In here is where you get all your wisdom from. And you get the wisest man I ever knew was like Ajahn Chah. Where did he get all his wisdom from? He did 4 years of school, that's all. And I got all these degrees from places like Cambridge, and I thought I was wise and smart. I was so arrogant when I first went to that place. And you just see this guy, he just knew so much more. Just the way he related to the world, related to me, related to everything. And that was actually one of the reasons I stayed at a place like that. And just realized that that university, that was like the most wonderful professor who knew so much more than I'd ever learned or could ever learn at one of the greatest universities. But I also wonder, where on earth did he get that wisdom from? It wasn't from books. It wasn't from talking to other people. It was listening to his own heart. Just being with himself in times of solitude. The hermits in the jungles, in the little monasteries in the mountains of Thailand, in the cave, spending time getting to know himself, spending time making peace with himself, spending time learning how to love himself, until he was so good at that, he could make peace with anybody and be kind to others and just love everybody. That's why it's so nice to be around such people. It was not just monks like him. Other monks I remember meeting. I remember one of my other favourite monks from Thailand at that time was a monk called Ajahn Tate, who lived in a monastery on the banks of the Mekong River, just outside of Nong Khai. And I remember the first time I went to visit him. And he was one of these people, as soon as you get close to him, you just don't want to leave. To me, it was feeling that many other people would criticize you and find fault with you. And this was a person who never would. It was a person that I never met him before, he never knew who I was, who gave total unconditional love from the very beginning. To me, it was like the perfect grandfather. You know what it's like, grandparents? Your mothers and fathers, they think they're supposed to discipline you and train you. That's the delusion of parents. Grandparents know better. They just love you. And they respect you. That's why, kids love being with their grandparents. I remember my grandmother, I could go around at any time and she'd always make me some chips. Even though it was going to spoil my dinner, it didn't mind. If you want some chips, you can have some. And she'd just do it for me. And I thought, my mother would never do that. She did that, why? Just, if that's what you want, that's what you get. It's just this wonderful sense of unconditional love. She let me decide if I needed them or not. I think many of you may have had grandparents like that. You know the grandparent thing. And this is why taking that level of acceptance and love just to a higher level with this monk Ajahn Tate. Just no criticism. You felt totally accepted. I never wanted to leave. You just wanted to sit there for the rest of your life, being with someone who just loved you for who you were and totally accepted you. And the reason I wanted to stay there, because I realized it was so rare to be in such situations. Most of my life, even in some of those monasteries, you always felt that you had to perform. You had to live up to someone's expectations. You had to somehow be different. And that was so much stress. And there was a person who just taught me how to be at peace. Not by saying anything, not by teaching profound things, but just by who he was. This great monk who just gave total acceptance. And I realized from that, what he was teaching me was how to give that to myself. To give myself that total acceptance that just never wanted to leave me. Just wanted to sit in my presence for however long I wanted. And that's how I meditate. That's why you can meditate for hours. Why? You just don't want to leave. When you meditate, why do you get restless? Why does the mind go off in the past and the future, fantasizing, thinking? It's because you don't like you. You're trying to be somehow different. Trying to make it happen, trying to do something, achieve something. If you could just like yourself as you totally are, give yourself 100% absolute acceptance, you'd be so peaceful, you'd never want to leave. You sit for hours, effortlessly, enjoying the joy of the hermit who loves themselves. And afterwards, when you come out, because all these things come out, you learn how to love other people. That's why that monk, Ajahn Tate, he obviously learned how to love himself, how to be at peace with himself, how to totally let go of all craving and ill will. And that's what he was teaching me. So it's not just for yourself. As you learn in your moments of your hermit time, that's actually what you bring out to other people. It's in the hermit time, that's actually where you learn the spiritual truths of life. Those are the times, they're the richest times of your life if you know how to use them. You go up to that inner mountain and you come out with all this, not just wise words, but wise actions and wise attitudes. The words are not important, it's where they come from. Their source, the kindness, the peace, the gentleness, that is what counts. And that's what you learn in your hermit moments. So it's a bit late now, the holiday seasons are over. By the next holiday, no need to go to Sri Lanka. No need to go to the United States. No need to go to Bali or to Thailand or wherever you go. You can save a lot of money and you can reduce your carbon footprint by staying at home, closing the doors and just being at peace with yourself. And if you can't do that at home, we've got places like Dharmasara Nuns Monastery, Bodhinyana Monks Monastery, Jhana Grove Bliss Centre. All these places where you can just go and hang out, not with the monks, not with the nuns, hanging out with you. You are much better than any monk, much better than any nun. You inside, hang out with you, make peace with you. Learn how to make you your very, very, very best friend. So much so that you can't have enough of hanging out with you. So you meditate and you just don't want to go anywhere. Totally at peace, totally still. And because you're totally at peace and totally still, because you're not doing anything, that's when the mangoes fall. Beautiful joys, peace, bliss, insights, everything you ever want from life. That's why in traditional religions it's the hermits were the wise people. Not the professors who learned all the languages and translated all the books. Not all those people who listen to all these talks again and again and again. I don't know how many talks I've given. So you hear the talk and do something about it. Instead of, I'm going to listen to another talk, here we go again. Just listen to a little bit of the talk and then do something about it. Follow it. Make the mind peaceful. Be kind to yourself. And develop those hermit moments. Seek them out until you're so at peace with yourself, so love yourself, that you really are your best friend. And from that, you'll get all the insights, and you'll find you can have a relationship with anybody. You can have a relationship with a person who's diametrically opposed to what you are. You can have a relationship with the other, with total respect, with total peace. That's the only way we can have any harmony in our world. So develop those hermit moments. They're brilliant. Those are the crucibles of wisdom, kindness, and real spirituality. Thank you for listening. So, there we go. The happy hermit. Or how to be a happy hermit. So, any questions? Actually, I remember I was going to say that the Dean of St. George's, because he's also a friend, he gave a talk here once, John Shepherd. He once told he was in England and he saw, because in this Anglican church, there was a convention of hermits. He thought, how can you have a meeting of hermits? They would never attend. Anyway, there it was. Anyway, any questions about the hermits? Yes? Yeah. Yeah, so you... Okay. Well, you love yourself and then you realise you're totally empty. You can be whatever you like. So there's no core to you. So you can actually change. You can be like a chameleon. You can be like a cloud in the sky. Now dark, now white, now vanish completely. I love the clouds in the sky. They're very beautiful. So be like a cloud, sometimes dark and full of rain, to fertilize the earth and give relief from the hot days of summer. Sometimes be like the beautiful white clouds, which dance gracefully along the sky. Sometimes be like the cloud at night, or in the evening, spreading the sunshine and these beautiful sunsets. or be like the cloud who totally vanished, you're not there. So, okay, there we go. Don't know if that makes any sense, but it sounded profound.